Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all lecturers and panels. Our group would like to present about our final year project with title The Volatility of Ftse Bursa Malaysia Klci during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is our group members under supervision of Madam Noreha binti Muhammad Yusof.
Hi, I will present first about the background of the study. Klci is a capitalization-weighted stock market index in Malaysia. For further understanding of the meaning of the Klci, F stands for the Financial Times Stock Exchange, BM stands for the Bursa Malaysia, and Klci stands for the Kuala Lumpur Composite Index. Klci composed on the 30 largest company in the Bursa Malaysia, such as CIMB Group's Holdings Berhad, Malayan Banking Berhad, and Maxis Berhad. According to the study of Lee, Jais and Chan in 2020, and based on this figure, we can see that Klci has been declining since January 2020, reaching a low of 1,290.71 on 19 March of 2020, which is the second day of the movement control order. And according to the Chakraborty MIT 2020, the World Health Organization declared that COVID-19 is a global pandemic on 11 March 2020. They're affecting over 200 countries. Since the disease's introduction, the number of positive and death cases has increased, and thought that disease's growth has slowed down in the certain region of the world, such as Europe, but is still growing rapidly in the certain regions such as America and Asia. The global spread of COVID-19 is shown in this figure. Next, I will explain about the problem statement. First one, the first MCO slowed down the economic growth and had influence on the stock market performance. In 2019, the Central Bank of Malaysia announced that the COVID-19 outbreak will have an effect on the country growth rates in the first quarter of 2020, which is down from 4.3% in 2019. Second, the COVID-19 had a significant effect on the majority of the corporation and the small businesses. COVID-19 was responsible for almost all of the temporary closures, which is accounted for about 43% of all the businesses. Next, rising number of COVID-19 cases and other relevant factors will trigger a market fluctuate. As Malaysia has successfully flattened the curve of COVID-19 infection within a few months after the first MCO, at that time, the third wave of the COVID-19 infection in Malaysia was predicted to come again after the 16th Sabah election. With this, it is affected the investor sentiment since the probability of the decline in the stock market is getting higher because of the attitude of selling and buying are highly dependent on the COVID-19 cases. And the last one is Malaysian acceptance of the COVID-19 vaccination was still low in the early month of the 2021. Vaccination will slow down the spread of the virus, but some of the people is still scared to receive it. Based on the study of Borneo 2021, was reported that 74.1% of the Malaysians were scared of the side effects of the vaccine that lead to the low acceptance rates. There are two objectives in this study. For the first one is to determine whether there is a significant negative impact towards the Klci after the emergence of the COVID-19. And the second one is to identify significant factors that influence the performance of Klci during the COVID-19 pandemic. The outcome of the study could help Malaysian government that can measure the daily monitoring of COVID-19 cases and the cases will be in control. Second, with the decreasing of COVID-19 outbreaks, people that run any business will be able to operate as usual. And third one, financial of Malaysians will be improved and recover as before. Fourth, it may be benefits to the trader and investor since they can differentiate the trend of the Klci before and after the emergence of the COVID-19. And the last one is the researcher also will gain the extra knowledge about the economic issue during the COVID-19 pandemic. By doing this study, there are some limitations. First one is the data access was limited. This is due to the fact that not all of the information or variable in the study were easily obtained through online or offline sources such as websites, newspaper or interviewing the relevant party. And the second one is the data may be not accurate, since the study is using the secondary data and the data were collected by the cross-checking and comparing to the multiple sources in order to get the most accurate data.
Hi, I'm going to talk about the literature review of this study. Firstly, according to Ashraf 2020, he said that when the COVID-19 cases increases, the FBM Klci responded negatively towards the situation. Next, according to Rosby and Haji Osman, they said that the FBM Klci had slowed down during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, I'm going to talk about the data collection method. The data that we use in our study is secondary data. So these are the process of collecting the data. Firstly, we find the data that are related to COVID-19 and FBM Klci. Since the COVID-19 is a trending topic nowadays, we can easily find the COVID-19 data from the internet. As for the FBM Klci data, we found the data from financeyahoo.com. The second step is we combine and reorganize the data. Since we have two objectives in this study, we have to have two sets of data. So we organize the data in the Microsoft Excel. The final step is we do cross-check towards the data so that the data is more accurate. So as I just said just now, we have two sets of data. The first data is for the paired t-test method and the second data is for the econometric modeling. So these are the description variables for the paired t-test method. So as you can see in the table, there are B COVID and A COVID. So the B COVID means before COVID and A COVID means after COVID. So as for the B COVID data, we took the data of FBM Klci from 1st August 2019 until 24th January 2020. And as for the A COVID, we took the data of FBM Klci from 28th January 2020 until 22nd July 2020. Next is the description variable for econometric modeling. So in this data, we have 5 variables, which is Klci, confirm, recover, death, and vaccine. So this is our theoretical framework. So as you can see, we have 4 independent variables and 1 dependent variables. So the dependent variables is Klci, and for the 4 independent variables is confirm, recover, death, and vaccine.
Hi, my name is Umi Ashikin and I will explain about the rest of Chapter 3 and the result in Chapter 4. Okay, so for the data analysis part, this table shows the summary of data analysis for our project. Based on the first objective, the variables involved are B-COVID and A-COVID, and the method used is paired t-test. And for the second objective, the variables involved are Klci at time t, confirm at time t, recover at time t, death at time t, and vaccine at time t. Then the method used for this objective is econometric modeling. Furthermore, based on this figure, we have plotted a trendline graph of the volatility of FBM Klci before and after the emergence of COVID-19. It was done to determine whether there is a significant negative impact towards FBM Klci after the emergence of COVID-19. The data plotted was between FBM Klci and the total cases of COVID-19 in Malaysia from August of 2019 until July of 2020. From the figure, it shows that there is no cyclical and seasonal component exists in the data series. And the FBM Klci is ranging from 1,550 to 1,600, which shows a sideways movement. However, starting from 25th January of 2020, the first cases of COVID-19 started and the FBM Klci went down drastically to the lowest level in March of 2020, which is at 1,279.36 only. Then, the COVID-19 cases in Malaysia started to give effect to the FBM Klci at early March of 2020 and continued to rise until the total cases of COVID-19 reached 7,000 in May of 2020. But FBM KLCI steadily increased from 1,279.36 to 1,450.54, even though the total cases of COVID-19 shows no sign of decreasing. In the next part, basically, I will explain the comparison between the methodology and the result. For T-test, the first assumption is the paired sample data must be in numerical and continuous form. The second one is the difference between the paired sample data must be normally distributed. Then, the result shows that both assumptions of T-test were satisfied based on this figure. For the hypothesis statement, the null hypothesis stated that there is no significant negative impact towards FBM KLCI after the emergence of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the alternative hypothesis stated that there is a negative impact towards FBM KLCI after the emergence of COVID-19. If p-value is less than 0.05, reject the null hypothesis, and if the p-value is greater than 0.05, do not reject the null hypothesis. The results of paired t-test can be shown in this table. Since the p-value is less than 0.05, null hypothesis was rejected. Thus, it can be concluded that there is a significant negative impact towards FBM KLCI after the emergence of COVID-19. Next, to achieve the second objective, an econometric modeling is done, and this is the actual model. Then, in order to overcome a serial correlation problem and get a best fit model, a suitable lag values were added after trying a lot of transformation. So, this is the final model. Furthermore, based on this table, it shows that the final model is a good fit model since the F-test value is less than 0.05. And since only p-value of vaccine that is less than 0.05, it means that only vaccine is a significant variable and can be included in the final model. Besides that, the R-squared value is greater than 70%, which indicates a good value. And that means there is a 91.53% of total variation in the KLCI that can be explained by the predictor. And since the Darwin-Watson value is between 1.8 until 2.2, there is no serial correlation exists in the model. Lastly, I will explain a comparison between the assumptions of econometric modeling and its model adequacy checking. In econometric modeling, there are a few of assumptions that need to be satisfied. The first one is linear relationship between each predictor and dependent variable, and it can be identified by using a scatter plot. By looking at this figure, it shows that there is no linear relationship exists between KLCI and vaccine, since the data does not seem to resemble any kind of linear pattern. Second assumption is multicollinearity, and it can be tested by using variation inflation factor or VIF. Since the value for centered VIF of vaccine is less than 10, there is no severe multicollinearity exists and the model can be proceeded. The next assumption is homoscedasticity, and it can be identified using residual plot. From this figure, the residuals plot for this final model displays no pattern or random residuals that uncorrelated and uniform. Thus, homoscedasticity exists. Next, the normality of error term can be detected by using histogram and Jar-Kubera test. Based on this figure, the histogram shows an approximately bell shape but not symmetric data. But since the probability of Jar-Kubera test is less than 0.05, null hypothesis rejected. Thus, the residual is not normally distributed. And the last one is the independence of error term, which can be identified using Darwin-Watson value. And from the general fitness of the model from the previous part, it indicates that there is no serial correlation exists in the model, since the Darwin-Watson value is between 1.8 until 2.2.
Next, I will explain further about the discussion of the study. The paired t-test was used to determine the first objective. Since the paired t-test assumption was met and the data analysis for the t-test has been done, it shows that the COVID-19 emergence has had a significant negative impact on the FBM KLCI. This finding is tally with the previous study. According to the study of Lee, Jais and Chan 2020 said that since the beginning of January 2020, the FBM KLCI has been on a downward trend, hitting a low point of 1,219.71 on 19 March 2020, which is the second day of the movement control order. While for the second objective, which is to identify significant factors that impact FBM KLCI performance during the COVID-19 pandemic, an analysis on econometric modelling is being used. Based on the actual model, the debt variable was found to be non-significant to the model. However, confirm, recover, and vaccine variable were shown to be significant to the model. Since some of the assumption was not met and one of the variable is not significant, the data must be transformed by adding some lag, such as lag of the KLCI and lag of the independent variables. Only one variable is significant to the model after the data has been transformed, which is vaccine variables. Since the R-square value, F statistic value, Darwin-Watson value, and almost all the assumption was met, the model now can consider good and well fit. Vaccine variable is significant in determining the KLCI. However, the contribution of the vaccine variable in KLCI is very small, which is nearly to the zero. By referring to the Hartono 2021 studies, stock investors were enthusiastic at each step of vaccine development. Investor positive opinions of the vaccination program help the stock market performance. However, it is insufficient, which is required government policy support to restore the market confidence in the recovery of the social and economic condition, which is including the stock market. So, it shows that the vaccine variable has a contribution in affecting the KLCI, but it is quite low. Furthermore, the confirmed variable is not significant towards the KLCI, and this finding is contradictory with the previous study. Ashraf 2020 said that as the number of the confirmed positive cases of the COVID-19 has increased, the stock market has reacted negatively and declined. Other than that, recovery variable also not significant to the model, and it also contradicts with the previous study. Nurjahyono, Hanum and Sukesti 2021 reported from the Indonesia, there is a positive effect on the capital market returns that is mainly affected by the growth in the number of the patients who have been rehabilitated. Meanwhile, the debt variable also shown not significant to the model, and it is supported by the other researcher. Chia, Liu and Roland in 2020 said that FBM KLCI has a non-significant negative impact on the number of the daily deaths. It shows that the confirm and recover variable are contradictory with the previous study. But the death variable is not significant to the fall of the KLCI, and it is supported by the other researcher. Confirmed death and recover variables have a little effect on the KLCI, whereas factors such as political issue and macroeconomic factors have a greater impact on the FBM KLCI. According to the Nam and Gita 2020 study, it was found that GDP and inflation have a negative impact with the stock market. The stock market declines 10% and 1.14% units for every 1% unit increase in GDP and inflation. Other than that, Misman, Roslan and Aladdin in 2020 said that Malaysia general election have a significant effect on the stock market. In the latest election, which took place in 2018, the daily return dropped by roughly 5% in 15 trading days after the election and dropped further to over 9% after 30 trading days. With this, it shows that macroeconomic factors and political issues will significantly impact on the FBM KLCI.
So, we can conclude that there are differences in the volatility of FBM KLCI before and after the emergence of COVID-19. And we also identified that vaccine had influenced the volatility of FBM KLCI. As for the confirm, recover, and death variables, it is not significant in this study. Finally, we would recommend for the future research to use political or economic factors to relate to FBM KLCI. And also, methodological work is needed and further economic analysis should be done. So that's all from us. Thank you very much for watching our presentation.